Welcome to the second last lecture of this series. After the last lecture also we are going to update the Google Drive folder with some new information and necessary information. So please keep a tab on the Google Drive also till 25th of this month, and the link is provided in the description. So our first topic today is World Trade Organization dispute panels. One basic thing you should know that any trade dispute which is covered, or for that you can go in the World Trade Organization. If you go, the World Trade Organization creates the dispute panels for every dispute separately. Now what has happened is that previously India applied 10% custom duty on the import of ICT products, mobile phones and ICT, information communication technology projects, those gadgets and everything which are coming mostly from China. So India applied 10% import duty, custom duty. Then India increased it to 15%. Then India increased it to 20%. Now this infuriated many countries including China. But the first trade body to go against this 20% was, or you can say in fact at the previous 15% level or 10% level only, maybe any level, but against the India's custom duty of 20% about the import of ICT products and mobile phones, the first trade body which went into the WTO for the dispute settlement, it was European Union. So on the request of European Union, one dispute panel was created. Now what has happened is that it is not China which has gone to the WTO, it is Japan and Taiwan. So now Japan, Taiwan and European Union, 3 dispute panels are created. Now they are saying that all our disputes concern to one thing, that is India's custom duty of 20%. So do one thing, create a single panel out of these 3 dispute panels. And why they want to do this? Because they will have major concerns. For example, Japan has raised 39 distinct measures, others have stated 6. So together it will become how much? 45. How many? 45. That will be more problematic for India. India will have more chances to lose the case. So that is why they want one single dispute panel for all of their concerns. Now India is saying that no, you guys have vast differences in your complaints. European Union, Japan and Taiwan has different type of complaints and different type of measures. So creating single dispute panel is not advisable. So that is India's stand. Also India has a different stand. India says that India is not party to ITA 2, India is party to ITA 1 only. And these products against which they are coming for this dispute settlement panel, the product they are claiming that India cannot include this 20% custom duty, those products are covered in ITA 2, not in ITA 1. So India being not a party to ITA 2, how can they sue India? India is only party to ITA 1. Now we have to understand everything again. This ITA is actually Information Technology Agreement of the WTO. ITA is Information Technology Agreement of the WTO. The first Information Technology Agreement came in 1996. So it was previously called only ITA. Now later in 2015, over 50 members concluded the expansion of ITA. So those products which were covered in ITA, those were expanded, the list was expanded, and additionally 201 products were added with a value of $1.3 trillion per year. So this became ITA 2. The 2015 agreement products became ITA 2, those additional 201 products, and this 1996 list was ITA 1 now, because it was ITA 2 came in the picture in 2015. So ITA 1 was named as ITA 1. Now India is participant of ITA 1, but India has not signed the ITA 2. So India is saying that the 20% custom duty is levied on those products which are covered in 2015 list, that is ITA 2. So you cannot raise a case against us. India is also saying that we had some matching problems, so some products are here and there. Taking benefit of that mistake, you cannot make a case against them, case against India. So this is the issue. Now you have to understand one more thing. You know that all the mobile phones are mostly coming from China. China has not raised the concern, but if India loses the case, China will be the biggest beneficiary if India loses the case, because most of the import is happening from China about the ICT products. So this is about WTO Trade Organization dispute panels regarding India's 20% custom duty levied on mobile phones and ICT products, and this is ITA 1 list. 1996, and this is ITA 2 list updated in 2015 with additional 201 products. You also have to remember these three trade bodies: European Union, Japan and Taiwan. Now World Investment Report 2020 has come. World Investment Report 2020. So World Investment Report is released by which organization? This is released by UNCTAD, United Nations. We will see UNCTAD body first, then we will come to the report. United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. This body was created in 1964. This is an intergovernmental permanent body. Headquartered is in Geneva. And also you should know that this is the principal organization of United Nations General Assembly, that is UNGA, and it deals with trade, investment and development issues, majorly focusing on the developing countries. Now, this is not the only report which is released by UNCTAD. UNCTAD overall releases these reports. Trade and Development Report is fine. World Investment Report, the Least Developed Countries Report, Information and Economy Report, Technology and Innovation, and Commodities and Development Report. All of these reports are released by UNCTAD. So this is a very important body. All these reports, you should just know that this is released by UNCTAD, and UPSC will not ask any deeper question from this. Now come to this report, World Investment Report 2020. Now in World Investment Report, we are focusing only on the trends on foreign direct investment worldwide. We will have a global data about the foreign direct investment overall, and then we will focus on the regional level also, for example South Asia, and the country levels also, for example India, Pakistan and everything, and emerging measures to improve its contributions to development. They will also suggest this. What can be the emerging measures to improve the contribution to development of FDI to development? Now every year when the report is released, it has 5 types of data. One is analysis of the trends in FDI. What is the trend according to the previous year? The 2020 report will have data of 2019. Ranking of the largest transactional corporations in the world. In-depth analysis of selected topics related to FDI, that is not very important. Policy analysis and recommendations are also provided, and a statistical annex is there with data of FDI flow and stocks at the country level, so that you can rank the countries. Now in the World Investment Report, if we see the global level, global FDI flows are forecast to decrease by up to 40% decrease will be there in 2020 if you compare from 2019. 2019 it was $1.54 trillion. Now this will see a decrease of almost 40%. So that will become 0.6 of $1.54 trillion. Why this is happening? Because of COVID pandemic and other global scenario of, already the trade and everything is declining. Investment flows are expected to slowly recover by the start of 2022. What does that mean? In 2020 and 2021 also you will see the decline, but by the start of 2022 there will be an upward shift. So we are projecting for 2020 40% decline, but in 2021 also there will be decline only. So which country has got the largest inflow of FDI? This is United States. Very surprising. United States has got the largest FDI. Very surprising for the general people, not for the economists. US has got the largest FDI, and then you have China, and then you have Singapore. And also you should know that if you see the year 2019, the condition was not so bad. In 2020 you are seeing less FDI in the projection, but in 2019 there was a modest increase in the FDI worldwide, globally. Why? Because there was a decline in 17 and 18, and there was improvement in 2019, but that improvement is going to get a setback in 2020 by 40%, then in 2021 also, then it will rise in 2022. So you can say that 17 had a decline, 18 had a decline, 19 had a bit better position, now 20 again will see decline, 21 also will see decline, and 22 again there will be improvement. If you talk about the region in which India is situated, South Asia, FDI flows in 2019 increased by 10%. That was very good. India in 2019 did very well and jumped from 12th position in 2018 rank to 9th position in 2019 and became one of the world's largest FDI recipients. 3 you know already: US, China and Singapore, but India is ranked also very well, 9th position in 2019 compared to the 12th position in 2018. And most of your investment were made in obviously your information communication technology and also in construction sector, also in construction industry. Now 2020 the global FDI will decrease and Indian FDI will see a very sharp decline because of the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdown and other things. Which country is giving most FDI to India? Singapore was the largest source of FDI in India during the last fiscal year, and then you had Mauritius because of those companies which just create a headquarter in Mauritius, that is the region, and then you have Netherlands. So Singapore, Mauritius and Netherlands, SMN. You have to remember Singapore and Mauritius at least. Otherwise you will mark Mauritius because you will see that okay, this is because of base erosion and profit shifting, so they are asking the question, let's mark Mauritius. No, Singapore is at the first position. We have taken some measures to decrease trade from these countries which does not have the actual headquarter, just have a fuzzy fake headquarter for investment taxation issue. So Mauritius is at second position, Singapore is at the first position. Now this is a very good thing. You have read about the purchasing power parity. So purchasing power parity, all these criteria are set by which organization? World Bank. World Bank has international comparison program which is in short called as ICP also. International comparison program of World Bank. Now they have updated the data for the reference year 2017. World Bank has released new purchasing power parities PPPs for reference year 2017. And that program is known as International Comparison Program. You can make a very good comparison among the exchange rate and GDP only when you see the purchasing power parity. Otherwise it is not very a good signal of your economies. Purchasing power parity has to be seen. For that, International Comparison Program is run by World Bank and they have released the new data for the reference year 2017. So that it is a PIB document copy paste that adjusts for differences in the cost of living across economies of the world. You will say what are the cost of living. You have to see the living. You just can't compare US dollar to Indian rupees without seeing the price of the subject, price of the object in the economies. So globally 2017 cycle of integrated comparison program 1676 economies participated. It is the largest worldwide data collection initiative, you have to remember, and it runs under the guidance of United Nations Statistical Commission, and this program is run by also World Bank with the goal of producing purchasing power parities which are vital for converting, I already explained you, for major economic activities to be a comparable economies. Anyway, along the PPPs, the ICP also produces price level indices. So what are the price levels according to the purchasing power parity and other regionally comparable aggregates of GDP, expenditure and everything. So what about India? Does India participate in all this international comparison program? Almost. India has participated in almost all ICP rounds since its inception. It has started in 1970. And which ministry of your country participates? Obviously, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is the national implementing agencies for India. And it has the responsibility of planning, coordinating and implementing the national integrated comparison program activities in your nation. Also, this time, a PIB article very proudly said that India was the co-chair of ICP governing body, and there was one more country in ICP governing body along with Statistics Austria for the ICP 2017 cycle. So now next question comes, the next cycle will come for 2018? No. Next ICP comparison will be conducted for the reference year 2021. Also, if you see the data released by this ICP program, in 2017 data, India retained and consolidated its global position. How? Third largest economy is India and accounts for 6.7% of global gross domestic product in terms of purchasing power parity. Okay, China 16.4%, United States 16.3%. In terms of purchasing power parity, China is 16.4% GDP of the world, US is 16.3% second, and India is third 6.7%, a distant third. India is also the third largest economy in comparison in terms of PPP based share in global actual individual consumption and global gross capital formation, GFC. So India is also there in the third position. Now this index is released by Niti Aayog in partnership with Institute of Competitiveness. This index is known as Export Preparedness Index. So what we are going to do here, we are ranking our Indian states and union territories that how much you are prepared for the exports, how much your export inability in your state, how much ease of doing business for the export. So this is export preparedness index prepared by Niti Aayog, but in partnership with Institute of Competitiveness, which is an Indian NGO probably, and they have released export preparedness index. This is the website of Competitiveness Institute of Competitiveness is an Indian knot in the global network of Institute of Strategy and Competitiveness at Harvard Business School. Okay. So now export preparedness index, this EPI export preparedness index has 4 pillars. You will see policy, you will see business ecosystem, you will see export ecosystem, and you will see export performance. So what are the policies? Whether you are providing the business ecosystem or not, then what is your export ecosystem, then comes the what is the finally actual export performance. These 4 pillars are divided into various 11 sub pillars. You do not need to know about them, don't worry. Now they will evaluate one state's potentials and capacities for the export, and after ranking it will lead to your competitive federalism. So various stakeholders will try to improve their situation, and export ecosystem will be strengthened at the national and state level, subnational level. So they classify the states and union territories in geographical classification, okay, because the coastal states cannot be compared with the landlocked state for the export. The coastal states have a different kind of easiness. So coastal states are classified differently, landlocked states are another criteria. Then Himalayan states have a different problem. They are far situated from the coastal area. They have the transport routes also very congested and very narrow. So they are classified geographically: coastal, landlocked, Himalayan, and UTs, city states, union territories or city states. For example, your Chandigarh, okay, union territory. Currently 70% of India's export has been limited or dominated by 5 states only. One is Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana. You have to remember in the order. Now World Bank releases global economic prospects twice in a year. One report comes in January and second in June. So June report has come. Now they try to examine global economic development and prospects, and a special focus is on emerging market and developing economies. So they will talk a lot about India. What they have talked now is that if you see India's financial year 2021 growth expected at minus 3.2%, that is Indian economy will contract at 3.2% in the current fiscal year, and that will be a sharp downgrade from its April projection. The previous projection was in April, so there will be a downgrade in its April projection of 1.5 to 2.8% growth, and they are citing that you have a stringent lockdown and weaker global growth also happening. So you are affected by the weaker global growth, and then you are affected by your own lockdown measures. So Indian economy is going to contract as per the Global Economic Prospects report of the World Bank. This is not only about India. World economy to be hit at minus 5.2% in 2020, Indian economy minus 3.2%. 90% of the economies will be in recession as per this global economic prospect, and global output will reduce to minus 8%. Okay. What about Euro area? To see largest contraction, that will be minus 9.1% in 2020. And they are saying that India, the stringent lockdown will curtail activity, growth despite a stimulus. Even if you provide the stimulus like infrastructure fund and everything, Atmanirbhar Bharat, then also your growth will reduce. Okay, these are the problems. And Bangladesh likely to grow at 1.6% in financial year 2021. The problem is the same. Emerging market economies are seeing the COVID-19 cases rising rapidly. So this is the problem. This is a comparison table. India minus 3.2, China 1%, US minus 7, and a world economy at minus 5.2 as per Global Economic Prospects report. Now your next thing is innovation and agripreneurship component of Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. So this Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana was already there. In that, the government has included this Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare actually. So Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana is already there. In that, one new component has come: innovation and agripreneurship, that is entrepreneurship in agriculture. This has been launched under Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, and aim is to promote innovation and agripreneurship and they will be providing you financial support and incubation ecosystem so that a startup in agriculture is improved. That will lead to Ashok Dalwai's committee recommendation fulfillment, that is doubling your farmers income. And these startups can be in various sectors of the agriculture. That can be agro processing, artificial intelligence in agriculture, digital agriculture, farm mechanization, waste to health, dairy, fisheries, everything. So allied agriculture components are also included. 3 components are there in this scheme. One is agripreneurship orientation, one is seed stage funding of this RABI incubates. Okay, incubates the companies which are going to start a business, those are called incubates. So you have seed stage funding also, and idea or pre-seed stage funding of agripreneurs. Okay, you should understand one thing, this is not about seed, that is agricultural seed. This is about seed stage funding. Before becoming a big business, you have at the seed stage only this incubative funding that is there. So agripreneurship orientation, seed stage funding, and idea or pre-seed stage funding of agripreneurs. So this everything has funding of 25 lakh, funding of 5 lakh. You don't have to remember that, don't worry. But just remember this thing, agripreneurship orientation, 2 months duration with a monthly stipend of 10,000 per month will be given, and mentorship is provided on financial issue, technical issue, and intellectual property issues also. This is for employment to the youth or startups in agriculture. So this is all in today's lecture I wanted to include, and because time is less, so I think the PDF will help more. So tomorrow one more lecture will come, and then you will have to see some topics from the PDF itself. And about today's PDF, it will be uploaded in late night. So last 2 classes and this PDF will be uploaded in late night. Thank you.